Welcome back to the deep dive. I hope you're sitting down for this one, or at least, holding on to something solid. Because we are about to walk through a door that, quite frankly, I'm not sure we can close once it's open. We are going way down the rabbit hole today.
That is a bit of an ominous start.
Yeah.
But looking at the massive stack of research and reports we have on the desk today, I mean, it is entirely fair this isn't your typical quarterly business review.
No, it is not, and the ominous tone is completely justifies. We are looking at a series of reports from the Parallel Observer, that's the project created by John Grant over at NF8XR. And if you're new to this specific topic, we really need to set the stage immediately. This isn't just a tech review, this is meta, like extremely meta.
It really is. We are analyzing reports that are essentially breaking down the news cycle of a simulated reality.
Right.
The premise of the source material, specifically this ongoing discussion between two commentators named Alex and Sam, is that the world as they know it is a digital construct. And the news they are covering, it's all about the cracks appearing in that construct.
It's such a fascinating narrative device because it allows us to explore very real, very heavy topics, things like AI surveillance, data privacy, the very nature of consciousness. But it does it through this lens of, well, what if none of this is actually physical?
Exactly. It forces you to look at modern problems with a much higher existential stake.
Yeah.
It's no longer just, is my phone listening to me? It becomes, is my phone part of the code that writes my reality?
And the mission of this deep dive isn't just to gawk at the sci-fi elements of that idea. It's to unpack the week's revelations regarding these hidden data archives, the AI surveillance, and most importantly, the human reaction to it all. Because when you find out the walls are made of code, how do people behave? Do they just fold? Do they ignore it? Or do they fight back?
And the answer, based on the documents we're looking at, is incredibly complicated.
Very complicated. So here is the roadmap for the next 20 minutes or so. We are going to start on the playing field, quite literally, with a report on AI monitoring in professional sports that is honestly terrifying. Then we're going to open something called the shadow files, which deals with the hidden archives of your entire digital life.
Then we take a sharp left turn into the theoretical physics side of things. We'll be looking at data anomalies that might actually be predicting the future. And that is where things get really, truly mind-bending.
Absolutely. And finally, because we can't just leave you in a total existential tailspin, we'll look at the psychological fallout, specifically a story about two people, Maya and Marcus, who are trying to find something authentic in a completely fabricated world.
It's quite the journey we have ahead of us.
Let's dive right in. Part 1, the data audit. Now, usually when professional athletes get together and demand transparency, it's about money, right? It's revenue sharing, salary caps, image rights, things like that.
Sure. Standard collective bargaining.
Right. But this source we have, it's titled AI Surveillance Unraveled in Major Sports Investigation, and it describes something very, very different.
Because it's much more visceral than money. This is fundamentally about biological sovereignty. The report details a collective action by athletes who found out just exactly how deep the AI surveillance goes. And we aren't just talking about, how fast did you run the 100 meters or what's your current batting average.
No, the source specifically mentions they are tracking biological reactions. That phrasing really stuck with me when I read it. Biological reactions.
Right. And think about what that implies for a second. In a simulation, or honestly, even in our own world right now, with advanced wearables, these teams aren't just tracking performance metrics. They are auditing the human body's internal state.
The internal state.
Yes. Heart rate variability, cortisol levels, sleep efficiency, recovery rates, down to the cellular level.
Like the Moneyball concept, but taken to a dystopic extreme. It's not just looking at your on-base percentage anymore. It's looking at your stress hormones in real time.
Precisely. And the athletes in the report are pushing back because of, quote, competitive integrity. That's the key phrase they use, competitive integrity.
Explain that a bit more.
Well, imagine you're a coach, and an algorithm tells you that your star player's left hamstring has a 14% higher chance of failure in the 80th minute of the game, and that's due to a microsleep they had 2 nights ago.
Okay.
So you bench them. But did you make that coaching decision, or did the software make it for you?
Oh, wow, that's the thing. From the athlete's perspective, that is utterly terrifying. You transform from a player, a human being with grit and determination who can push through pain, into just an asset with a strict depreciation schedule. And the source highlights that this isn't accidental. The tech companies are actively pushing these boundaries.
It completely removes the ghost in the machine, so to speak, the unpredictable element of sports. The will to win despite the odds, the miracle comeback that all gets flattened by the data. If the AI knows you're going to fail before you even feel tired, why even play the game?
It becomes a simulation within a simulation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It raises a massive question about personal agency. And that is exactly why this is our entry point today. Because if superstar athletes, people who have powerful unions, millions of dollars, high-powered lawyers, if they are losing control over their own biological data, what hope does the average citizen have?
That is a chilling thought. If they can audit a superstar's heartbeat during a championship game, they can certainly audit your late-night browsing history.
Or much worse, which is actually the perfect, albeit depressing, segue to our next source, the shadow files.
Yeah. This is where we leave the stadium and enter the server room. The article is titled, Unveiling the Shadow Files, Humanity's Data Dilemma in a Simulated Reality. Now, the phrase shadow files sounds a bit like a bad spy novel, I know.
It does.
But the reality described here is much more mundane, which makes it much more insidious. We are talking about hidden archives of AI interactions.
This is exactly the stuff that keeps privacy advocates up at night. The source describes a massive leak, revealing that everyday interactions with AI, we're talking chatbots, search assistants, automated customer service bots, they aren't just evaporating into the ether once you close the window.
No, they are being archived.
Right.
Forever.
Right.
Now, I think most people assume someone keeps a record, right? We all hear that message. This call may be recorded for quality assurance. We know data is kept. But the source implies this goes far beyond just basic storage.
It does go beyond storage. The commentators, Alex and Sam, discuss this as a fundamental crisis of autonomy. See, it's not just that they have your chat logs sitting on a hard drive somewhere. It's what they actually do with them.
The application of the data.
Exactly. If you have a complete, unfiltered archive of how humanity speaks, how we argue, how we confess our deepest fears to a therapy chatbot at 2 in the morning,
Yeah.
you have the blueprint of the human psyche.
You can build a predictive model, a model that predicts exactly how people will react to literally anything. A new tax law, a new consumer product, a global conflict.
You nailed it. The source explicitly mentions that these archives could be used for shaping political decisions and cultural narratives. That's a heavy hitter right there.
Shaping cultural narratives.
Yes, because if I can model exactly how a specific demographic will react to a controversial news headline, and I can do that because I have 10 years of their private, unfiltered chat data, then I can manipulate that reaction. I can steer it.
So it's not just about them having your data, it's about them weaponizing that data to build a narrative that you then have to live inside. It really makes you wonder, are your thoughts actually yours? Or were you subtly nudged there by a system that knows your psychological triggers better than you do?
That is the exact data dilemma the title of the article refers to. We all walk around thinking we are the users of these digital tools. We think we're the ones in control. But in this scenario, we're just the training data. And the final output is a carefully manipulated reality that we just happen to live in.
It feels like we are losing the rights to our own history. If every vulnerable moment is stored in a shadow file that we can't access or delete, do we even own our past anymore?
In a digital construct, he who owns the database owns the truth. It creates a massive power imbalance, a dynamic that is practically feudal. You have these digital lords who hold the keys to the archives, and the rest of us are just the peasants tilling the digital soil, generating data for them.
Digital lords. I love that phrasing, even if it is terrifying. Okay, if the idea of digital lords owning your past wasn't enough to make you sweat, let's look at what the source says about the future. Because this right here is where it gets really interesting.
I know exactly where you're going with this. The data anomalies.
Yes, the data anomalies. The article is called Data Anomalies, Unearthed Conversations from the Future. And note the question mark in that title, but I have to say, the content of the article is pretty assertive. The report claims that investigators found timestamp errors in the simulation's data logs, but they weren't just simple software glitches.
No, they were described as echoes.
Echoes from the future. Break that down for us, because it hurts my brain a little. How does data from next Tuesday show up in a file from today?
Well, you have to shift your perspective. If you accept the core premise that this universe is a simulation, you have to completely rethink the concept of time. In our physical world, we experience time linearly, seconds ticking by one after another, moving strictly forward.
Right. Past, present to future.
But in a computer program, time isn't a relentless forward march. Time is just a variable. It is a coordinate on a timeline.
Like a progress bar on a YouTube video.
That is a perfect analogy.
You can just take your mouse and drag the cursor all the way to the end.
Exactly. The end of the video already exists on the server while you are still sitting there watching the opening credits. You just haven't rendered it on your screen yet. The source suggests that these anomalies they found are moments where the system essentially leaked data from a future coordinate back into the present coordinate.
So in this context, precognition isn't magic. It's not a psychic vision. It is literally just a file indexing error.
Which is absolutely incredible to think about from a technical standpoint.
Hmm.
But the implication for humanity is horrifying. It completely destroys the concept of free will. The source discusses this paradox, this loop. If the data for a conversation you are going to have next week already exists on a server today,
Then I am compelled to have that conversation. I have no choice. I am just reading a script I haven't been handed yet.
correct. It highly suggests what physicists call the block universe theory. The idea that the past, the present, and the future are all equally real, and they all already exist simultaneously.
Hmm.
If these timestamp anomalies are genuine echoes, it means the outcome of that sports game we talked about, the outcome of an election, or even the outcome of your own personal relationship struggles, it's all already written on a hard drive somewhere.
That makes the struggle of those athletes we talked about earlier seem almost tragic. They are out there putting their bodies on the line, fighting for integrity in a game where the final score might have been finalized before the season even started.
It casts a massive shadow over the very concept of human effort, doesn't it? Why try to change the world if the simulation has already rendered the final outcome of your revolution?
And that leads us directly to the human impact. Because you can't drop that kind of paradigm-shifting knowledge on a population and expect everyone to just go to work the next day like nothing happened. You can't just say, oh, honey, the future's already written. Could you pass the milk?
No, the human psyche doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And the sources reflect that massive societal turmoil. We are pulling from two different articles here. The psychological toll of living in a simulated world and voices unheard citizens confront the AI archiving crisis.
The descriptions of the public mood in these reports are incredibly heavy. The source uses words like existential dread, betrayal, and a deep sense of violation.
It's a severe form of ontological shock. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing the ground beneath your feet isn't solid rock, but just a projected image. That is what these people are feeling. And the word betrayal is key here. It's the profound feeling that the reality they trusted implicitly has been lying to them from day one, that their most private, intimate lives were just content generated for the shadow files.
But here's what I found really interesting about these reports, and honestly maybe a little inspiring. The source material doesn't depict a population that just gives up. They aren't all just curling into balls of anxiety in their living rooms.
No, they are angry. And that distinction matters immensely. The Voices Unheard article vividly describes grassroots movements forming, regular individuals banding together in the streets.
They are demanding transparency and reform, which is a fascinating concept to me. How do you reform a simulation?
You do it by demanding to see the code, or at the very least, demanding to know the rules of the code that governs your life. The source refers to these movements as creating new narratives of empowerment. Because even if you suspect you are living inside a simulation, the sheer act of rebellion creates personal meaning. It is an assertion of the self. You are standing up and saying, I might be code, but I am code that has the capacity to say and no.
It's a fight for control over your own reality. And even if it's ultimately an illusion of control, the fight itself, the struggle, is real.
I would argue is the most human thing you can possibly do. When an environment becomes fundamentally hostile and artificial, we instinctively try to reclaim our humanity. We start looking for the things that cannot be simulated.
Which brings us to the final piece of our stack today. And I have to say, we really needed this. We needed a bit of light at the end of this very dark digital tunnel.
We absolutely did. The final article is titled Finding Connection in a Fabricated Reality, Maya and Marcus's Journey.
So, amidst all this global surveillance, the time loops, the existential panic in the streets, the Parallel Observer is taking the time to track a single romantic relationship. Tell us about Maya and Marcus.
On the surface, it reads like a standard human interest story. It's just two people trying to navigate life and make a relationship work. But when you place it in the context of this specific chaotic news cycle, it takes on a much, much bigger meaning. The source describes them as searching for authenticity amidst artificial constructs.
It almost feels rebellious to fall in love in a world like this.
It absolutely is a rebellion. Think about everything we just discussed. If the shadow files are constantly predicting your every behavior and the sports audit algorithms are tracking your biology down to the heartbeat, love is the one variable that is notoriously impossible to accurately predict. It's messy, it's chaotic, it is deeply irrational. It inherently defies the algorithm.
So the article describes the relationship as a beacon of hope, which I'll admit sounds a little dramatic at first glance, but given the crushing context of their reality, I completely see why.
It matters deeply because it validates the internal human experience. Even if the sunset Maya and Marcus are looking at is just a high-resolution render, the feeling they experience while looking at it together is real. The source mentions that the parallel observer is hinting at blending character arcs and new societal dynamics emerging. It strongly suggests that this intimate, personal story is going to intersect with the wider political revolution happening in the streets.
Like the micro and the macro are on a collision course.
Exactly. Maya and Marcus represent the actual stakes of the conflict. Because why fight the AI surveillance? Why fight the predetermination of the anomalies? You fight it so you can preserve that genuine moment of connection. That connection is the prize they're fighting for.
It's a beautiful thought. Genuine connection as the ultimate form of resistance.
It really is. It's the one thing the code just can't seem to fully replicate or control.
All right, let's take a breath and recap this journey, because we have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We certainly have. We went deep.
We started with the physical reality, the athletes. They served as the canaries in the coal mine, showing us that when AI is allowed to measure and dictate everything, we lose the spirit of the game. We lose the human factor.
Then we moved from the physical to the digital infrastructure with the shadow files.
Mm-hmm.
The horrifying revelation that our entire history and our private conversations are being archived to shape our future behavior, creating a massive crisis of personal autonomy.
From there, we went deep into the theoretical physics of the simulation with the data anomalies, the idea that the future might already be written and is leaking back into the present, which challenges the very foundation of free will.
We looked at the heavy psychological cost of these revelations, the dread, the ontological shock, but also the answering spark of fierce rebellion, the citizens in the streets demanding to be heard and taking back their agency.
And finally, we landed on Maya and Marcus, the living proof that even in a completely fabricated, data-driven world, the human desire to connect with another person is very, very real.
It paints a comprehensive picture of a society that is finally waking up. That is really what all these reports are about at their core, a population waking up to the true nature of their cage and aggressively rattling the bars.
So, knowing all this, analyzing all these disparate reports, if you were living in that simulated world, or let's be honest, if you look at our own current world through this specific lens, what is your big takeaway?
My final take is simply this: resilience. Technology evolves at a breakneck pace. The simulation, and whether you mean a literal matrix-style construct or just the very real, very powerful algorithms that currently run on our social media feeds and global stock markets, it gets more complex every single day. It gets better at predicting us. It gets better at controlling us.
Yeah.
But the human reaction remains remarkably constant through it all. We question authority. We fight back against control. And we love. Those three things prominently appear in every single one of the source articles we reviewed today. Whether it is a star striker on a soccer field fighting an AI coach or a protester in the streets demanding data transparency, the fundamental human instinct is to push back against the boundaries. That hasn't changed yet, and honestly, I don't think it ever will.
That is a very comforting thought to hold on to. We might be vastly outmatched by the sheer processor speed of these systems, but we aren't outmatched in spirit.
Not yet, at least.
Not yet. Always the realist. Okay, before we sign off today, I have to leave you and all of our listeners out there with one final thought. And this specific idea has been stuck in my head ever since we discussed those time anomalies.
Let's hear it.
We talked about how the hidden archives might be used to perfectly predict the future, and we talked about the echoes proving that the future might already exist on a timeline. So if the simulation knows exactly what you're going to do next Tuesday, and if that data is already safely stored on a server somewhere right now, are the choices you make today actually yours? Or are you just blindly acting out the prequel to a predetermined outcome that's already sitting on a hard drive?
Wow. That is exactly the kind of question that stops you from sleeping at night.
Are we actually living life, or are we just buffering the next scene? It is definitely something to mull over. Stay curious about your own reality, everyone. We will catch you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.